Now we're going to talk to Mckayla Wilkes, running the 5th District. Mckayla, welcome to the Young Turks.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. So, Mckayla, I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Brianna. The central question here, you're both progressive, solidly so. We're going to talk about policy priorities in a minute, but why should progressives back you?
Well, I believe that progressives should back me because we need that firsthand experience in Congress. I feel as though I resonate with so many of our constituents. You know, I have academic knowledge of how legislation affects us, but I think it's also important to have those who are the closest, those who have been directly impacted, to be a member of Congress, to represent us, someone who knows our struggles. And I think that that's what makes me the perfect candidate for this race. I've lived in Maryland almost my entire life. I've lived in this district for more than half of my life. And I really feel like the voters can resonate with me. And I feel like I have the chance to make change. And I feel like I've already begun to gain the trust of our constituents here in this district.
So how are you going to take on Steny Hoyer? He obviously has a lot of money and a lot of infrastructure support, and also in a bizarre way in America, the media supports people who are already in power. So given those odds, what's your strategy for taking him on?
My strategy is to have a very strong, hard ground game. That is how we're going to beat Hoyer. We're going to beat him on the ground. We're going to beat him with the power of the people. You know, already this campaign has raised more money than any other challenger to Hoyer, past or current. In small dollar donations, we have continued to beat Steny Hoyer throughout this cycle to this day. People are ready for change, and we're just going out into the community and talking to them and doing things that Hoyer won't do.
So let's talk about those numbers a little bit. So you mentioned you got more small dollar donors than Steny Hoyer. Can you give me a sense of what the numbers are?
Yeah, so in quarter one, he raised $185 in small donors. Yeah. So like about less than 2% of his contributions came from small donors, which I believe in quarter two, we raised 50,000 altogether. In quarter one and quarter two, this campaign raised $50,000 with an average contribution of $20 per person.
So let me stay on that for a second, Mckayla, because you're not a wealthy person. I read your background, right? And so, and that's why we're talking about small dollar donors here. Anyway, I don't care about big dollar donors. All that tells me is basically corruption. Yes, Steny Hoyer takes a lot of money from basically corporate interests and their lobbyists. That doesn't impress me. It does the opposite. And I think that the same goes obviously for our audience. So, but raising $50,000 from small dollar donors is pretty impressive. How did you do that?
Social media. I mean, just social media, like pushing our agenda, and also being on the ground, knocking on doors, calling, talking to people, gaining people's trust. I mean, and that's one of the advantages that I do have as one of the candidates in this race, is because people trust me because I've been through the things that they've been through. You know, this campaign is based off of transparency, and I think that people appreciate that.
And how about volunteers? Any numbers on that?
Yeah, so far we have maybe a little over 40 volunteers. I think about 44 now, or 45 volunteers.
Okay, and is that also through social media that you got those?
Yes.
Okay, and how about endorsements? I know that it's hard in a race where you've got two progressives running against an established Democrat. Any endorsements on your ledger?
Yeah, so actually last week we were just added to the slate of brand new Congress.
Okay, so for people who are not familiar, brand new Congress and Just Democrats were basically the same group, and then we split up, but they're a wonderful organization and a lot of the same folks that who worked on that and also helped AOC and the others win. Okay, that's interesting. So let's go to policy. Now, you're solidly progressive, so is your opponent. I don't mean Steny Hoyer, but I mean Brianna. So let's talk about your priorities. Out of the different progressive policies, which ones are your priorities?
So my priorities are criminal justice reform, Medicare for all, Green New Deal, and also affordable housing.
So why those ones?
Well, our criminal justice system, for one, needs a complete overhaul. I mean, the systemic racism, criminalizing poverty, and just people for life happening to them should not be happening. We shouldn't have people who are clearly, addicted. That have substance abuse incarcerated. Me myself have been incarcerated for driving on a suspended license, for something so simple as not being able to pay to be able to pay traffic tickets, which is a huge issue. Medicare for all is absolutely something that should have been passed, something that should been supported by our current representative, but it's not. Healthcare is a human right, and it should not your healthcare should not be determined by if you can afford to pay for it or if you are employed. And that's what's happening. Because even though people are insured, they're underinsured. Myself, for instance, after I pay my entire deductible, I'm only 20% covered. 123 people are dying each day due to lack of health insurance. We should absolutely be backing Medicare for all, especially in a district as deep as ours. The Green New Deal, another thing that we should be supporting, especially as Marylanders, because we pride ourselves in our environmentalism. We also have coastal communities in our district. I mean, and the Green New Deal, to me, is just absolutely amazing. It's getting us to 100% renewable energy while at the same time simultaneously creating economic sustainability and essentially ending poverty, which is absolutely important. And I support affordable housing. I mean, because housing is also a human right. No one in America, which is the richest nation, should have to sleep outside like so many of my friends have to do. And it's not even because all of them don't have jobs. We have people who are homeless here in our district who work, but the cost of housing is too high.
Okay, so if a mainstream media reporter came to you and said, well, Steny Hoyer is, in their opinion, solidly liberal, and he just thinks that there's a more moderate approach and that you should go towards fighting climate change, but a little bit more incrementally because otherwise it's too impractical. And Medicare for all, we're not quite ready. We have to improve upon Obamacare, et cetera. These are the positions of Steny Hoyer. How would you respond to that?
I feel like a moderate response to these issues is accepting middle ground on these issues, which is absolutely unacceptable, especially for someone who's supposed to be a Democrat, for someone who's supposed to be looking out for our interests. It's unacceptable. There is no moderate way to deal with this. We have to go bold with it. We have to do it full force because this is what's happening. We're already seeing the effects of climate change. People are already dying from not having health insurance or being underinsured. People are already unjustly incarcerated because of our criminal justice system, which I might add that Steny Hoyer actually pushed for not only the 1994 crime bill, but the 1982 crime bill, the 1984 crime bill, the 1986 crime bill, and the 1988 crime bill. This is someone who has been pushing against us from the start, and it's time to stop it. And that's why I'm trying to primary him now.
Yeah, so do you think that he does an okay, a moderate job or a poor job of representing the district?
I think that I won't say that there are things that he hasn't done that may, that have benefited us. I feel like that he has been a middle ground that he's been a middle ground representative. At this point in time, maybe back when he first was in office, he may have been doing a moderate job. At this point, I think that he's quite honestly doing a poor job at representing the people in his district.
Right. You mentioned criminal justice reform as one of your priorities, and you said you went through it. You actually went to jail for not paying traffic tickets?
Yes.
So walk us through that. What happened and what did you gain from that experience?
So basically, here in Maryland, I'm not sure how it is in other states, but here in Maryland, if you get traffic tickets and you are unable to pay them, your license gets suspended, which is a jailable offense here in Maryland, amongst other things that should not be. But when it happened to me, I felt degraded, I felt dehumanized, I felt like I didn't matter. I went into the courtroom and I explained to the judge, he asked, why can't you pay? Why were you driving with your license suspended? Your privileges were, not active. Why were you driving? And, I would tell the judge, well, I had to work. I have children, I have a home that I have to provide myself for. And, how am I going to pay the traffic tickets if I don't go to work? Common sense. But I was ultimately given the ultimatum of, well, okay, you can pay $1,000 in fines and 13 points in your license, or you could spend 2 nights in jail. At this point in time, I was about 6 months pregnant with my daughter. I had a high risk pregnancy because I had DVT, which are blood clots behind each knee and one in my lung. And unfortunately, I had to take the 2 nights in jail. And it really made me see that this is a systemic issue that needs to be changed. Because initially I wanted to work in psychology, to work with people who were in prison and work with people who were in juvenile detention centers like I was when I was younger. And so that I can offer them that aspect of rehabilitation versus being exploited. But once I started going through this, I realized that this is a systemic issue, like it's bigger than the individual.
Mm-hmm. And then, real quick, why did you want to run for this race? Because it's obviously very difficult to do, and certainly weren't going to get the backing of any of the Democratic establishment. So why decide to go on this venture?
I'm running because, the urgency of the moment. Like so many people like me and so many people in my community have felt forgotten, in the conversations that are being had in Congress. And I feel like that we're not properly represented. And I'm running because we need somebody who will look out for us instead of corporate interests, which is what we've been basically getting for the past almost 40 years.
So the website is Mckayla2020.com. Obviously, we'll have the links to donate and volunteer down below. You can click on them, which is really easy to do. And in a sense, I want you to check out both interviews if you can, please. And you can vote with your dollars, and you can vote by volunteering, and see which progressive you want to back against Steny Hoyer. So I want to give you the same amount of time that Brianna had. So in essence, basically a closing statement, if you will, of why people should back you in this race.
I think that people should back me because not only do I have academic knowledge of the way that legislation affects us, but I lived through our struggles. I am one of us. I'm not fighting for us. I'm fighting with us. We need that firsthand experience in Congress. We need someone who's been directly impacted because for too long, we've had people leading from the outside in. It's time we lead from the inside out, and I'm the candidate to do that.
All right, Mckayla Wilkes running in Maryland's 5th District against Steny Hoyer. Thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.